What would make loyal church members, people who've worshiped for years, suddenly walk away? Was it conflict, scandal, or something far deeper than anyone expected? Today, we're diving into the shocking truth behind why Bishop Wooden's own congregation faced a wave of departures. And trust me, what you're about to hear will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about church loyalty and leadership. Bishop Patrick L. Wooden has never been a stranger to controversy. Known for his bold sermons and unapologetic stands on social issues, his name carries weight both inside the pulpit and beyond. But recently, something unexpected began unfolding within his own congregation. Members, some of them longtime supporters, started leaving his church. For many, the obvious question was, why? Was it disagreements over doctrine? Was it leadership decisions behind the scenes? Or was it something deeper, a shift in culture and direction that left people feeling disconnected from the very place they once called home? In this video, we're going to peel back the layers of this unfolding story. We'll uncover what really happened inside Bishop Wooden's church, why so many members decided to part ways, and what this means for the future of his ministry. You won't believe some of the reasons people have shared, and trust me, the details only get more surprising as we go along. By the end, you'll not only understand why members left, but you'll also see how this situation reveals bigger truths about leadership, loyalty, and the challenges every church faces in today's world. So stay with me, because this is where it gets interesting. To truly understand why members left Bishop Wooden's church, we first need to look at how it all began. Bishop Wooden isn't just another pastor in a pulpit. He's a man whose voice has reached far beyond the four walls of his sanctuary. Known for his uncompromising sermons and outspoken stances, he built a reputation as someone unafraid to tackle controversial topics head-on. For many years, this boldness was exactly what drew people to his ministry. Members admired his passion, his willingness to speak truth without sugarcoating, and his dedication to standing firm on biblical principles, even when society moved in the opposite direction. Families joined the church because they felt it offered stability in a world filled with uncertainty. Others came because they were inspired by his vision of community, faith, and accountability. At its peak, Bishop Wooden's church was a spiritual home for hundreds, if not thousands. Worship services were electric, filled with music, energy, and sermons that left people both challenged and inspired. Ministries flourished, programs reached into neighborhoods, and for many, it felt like the church was more than a building. It was a family. But here's where things started to shift. As the church grew, so did the pressures that came with leadership. A bigger platform meant bigger scrutiny, and while some members celebrated Bishop Wooden's boldness, others began to feel that his tone was becoming harsher, more confrontational, and less pastoral. What was once inspiring to many started to feel intimidating to others, and this is where the first signs of division appeared. Some members quietly questioned the direction of the church, while others remained fiercely loyal to Bishop Wooden's leadership. It was the beginning of a slow but noticeable change. But what exactly pushed this tension into full departures? That's where things get even more revealing. Around the middle of Bishop Wooden's tenure, murmurs began circulating within the congregation. At first, it was subtle. Small groups of members missing from Sunday services, whispered conversations in the hallways, and occasional social media posts hinting at dissatisfaction. But soon, these signs became undeniable. Members were leaving, and the departures were coming in waves. The reasons varied, but a pattern quickly emerged. Some former members said they felt the church had grown too focused on hierarchy and control rather than community and support. People described an environment where questioning leadership or raising concerns felt unwelcome. Others shared that Bishop Wooden's confrontational style which had initially drawn them in, had become emotionally exhausting. What once inspired confidence began to feel like judgment and scrutiny. One former member described it as a gradual erosion of trust. "I loved the energy of the church at first," she said, "but over time, I felt like my voice didn't matter. Decisions were made without explanation, and questioning them made you feel like an outsider." There were also reports of doctrinal disagreements. Bishop Wooden had gained attention for his firm positions on controversial topics, some of which conflicted with personal beliefs of longtime congregants. While some members appreciated the clarity, others felt alienated. It wasn't just theological differences, it was about feeling unseen and unheard in a place that once felt like home. Perhaps the most surprising factor, though, was the influence of social media. Former members began sharing their experiences online, creating conversations that the church leadership could no longer ignore. Posts ranged from heartfelt explanations to critical commentary on leadership style, and this public dialogue amplified the departures. Once private concerns became a visible trend, drawing more attention and causing additional members to reconsider their involvement. Despite these challenges, Bishop Wooden continued to assert his approach, emphasizing the importance of steadfastness and conviction. To some, this was admirable. To others, it confirmed that the leadership was unwilling to adapt or listen to growing concerns. This refusal to shift, even slightly, became one of the central reasons why members decided it was time to leave. And while this was just the first wave, it set the stage for something far more revealing, a series of departures that would expose deeper issues in the church's leadership and community dynamics. But the next part of the story is even more surprising because it involves insiders who once championed Bishop Wooden's leadership and then turned away. The first wave of departures was only the tip of the iceberg. As more members left, whispers of internal conflicts began to surface. Stories from people who had been deeply involved in the church, some serving on leadership teams, who began speaking out about issues that had remained hidden for years. These were not casual complaints. They were first-hand accounts that painted a far more complicated picture of life inside Bishop Wooden's ministry. Several insiders revealed that the church's internal decision-making was far more centralized than members realized. While the public saw a confident leader delivering powerful sermons, behind closed doors, many felt the leadership was rigid and unapproachable. Decisions about programs, financial allocations, and even personnel were often made without consultation or transparency. For some longtime volunteers, this created a sense of powerlessness. They were giving their time, energy, and hearts to the church, yet they had little influence over how it was run. But the revelations didn't stop there. Former staff members described a culture of fear and loyalty tests. In some cases, raising concerns about ministry practices or financial matters could lead to ostracism or public rebuke. One insider explained, "It wasn't about malice, but about control." The environment was so tense that people second-guessed themselves before even speaking. You could see talented members slowly withdraw because it felt safer to leave than to stay and fight. Some of the most shocking accounts involved clashes over doctrine and public messaging. Bishop Wooden had always been vocal about his interpretations of Scripture and his stance on social issues, but according to insiders, disagreements about tone and approach became personal. People who once championed his leadership found themselves sidelined or quietly pushed out for expressing differing viewpoints. These conflicts weren't always visible to the congregation, which made the departures even more confusing and painful for those watching from the pews. There were also accounts of burnout and emotional strain. Volunteers and staff who had poured years into the church described feeling emotionally drained. The expectation to always align perfectly with leadership, combined with public scrutiny, led to a kind of quiet crisis. Many insiders admitted they loved the mission and the community, but the cost to their mental and emotional health was too high. Perhaps the most striking element of these insider revelations is that they expose a tension every organization faces: the balance between strong leadership and inclusive community. Bishop Wooden's vision and passion were undeniable, but the question became, at what cost? Members who had once been loyal found themselves questioning whether the church could sustain both strong leadership and a welcoming, supportive environment. And here's the part that shocked many of his former followers. Some insiders suggested that there were moments when the church leadership might have anticipated these departures and still chose not to address the underlying issues. According to several former members, it wasn't simply disagreements or misunderstandings. It was a pattern that, once recognized, made leaving almost inevitable for some. As the story unfolded, it became clear that the departures were not random or isolated. They were part of a larger narrative of expectations, loyalty, personal conviction, and human complexity. And what's even more revealing is that some of the most respected voices in the church quietly decided that walking away was the only way to preserve their integrity and faith. But the most unexpected revelations were yet to come. In the next section, we'll uncover the emotional stories of families and longtime congregants, people whose lives were profoundly impacted by the departures and whose testimonies reveal the human side of this controversy. While the insider revelations expose structural and leadership issues, the real story lies in the human cost of the departures. Behind every number in attendance, behind every member left statistic, there is a person, a family, a life disrupted. For many congregants, leaving Bishop Wooden's church was not a simple decision. It was an emotional and spiritual struggle that left lasting scars. Consider the families who had been part of the church for generations. Some grandparents had attended since the church's earliest days, passing down faith traditions to their children and grandchildren. For them, the decision to leave was not just about disagreement with leadership, it was a profound sense of loss. One longtime member shared, "This church was my home. My kids were baptized here. My family celebrated milestones here. Walking away felt like abandoning a part of my soul." Young adults and teens faced a different kind of challenge. Many had grown up idolizing Bishop Wooden and had looked up to him as a role model and mentor. For them, seeing the church they loved crumble from the inside was a painful betrayal. They struggled to reconcile their faith with the growing discord around them. Some turned to other churches, some drifted from organized religion altogether, and some were left questioning their own beliefs. Even the most committed members experienced emotional fatigue. The departures were not clean or easy. They often involved public explanations, awkward confrontations, and a constant sense of judgment from friends who stayed behind. One former volunteer described it as living in two worlds at once. You loved the people, you loved the mission, but every Sunday felt like walking into a storm. You couldn't fully be yourself without facing criticism. Marriages and friendships were tested. Couples who had worshiped together for years found themselves at odds over whether to stay or leave. Longtime friends were divided, with some remaining loyal to Bishop Wooden and others feeling compelled to step away for their own peace of mind. The result was a ripple effect of tension and heartbreak that extended beyond the church walls into homes and workplaces. But perhaps the most heart-wrenching stories came from those who felt spiritually abandoned. Some members had relied on the church as a source of guidance, hope, and community support during difficult times. For them, leaving was not just a choice, it was a painful severance from the people and practices that had nurtured their faith. One woman tearfully recounted, "I spent 20 years here. When I left, I felt like I had lost my spiritual family. It wasn't just about disagreement, it was about losing a part of who I was." And yet, amidst the heartbreak, there were lessons. Many who left spoke of newfound clarity, personal growth, and the courage to make decisions aligned with their values. While leaving was emotionally taxing, it also became a catalyst for reflection and renewal. The human stories reveal a complex truth. The departure of members was not just about leadership or doctrine, but about personal integrity, emotional health, and the search for a place where faith feels safe and sustaining. As painful as these stories are, they provide crucial insight into the broader implications of church leadership and community dynamics. The next section will explore the lessons learned and the ripple effects, examining how Bishop Wooden's experience offers warnings and guidance for religious leaders everywhere, and why this story matters far beyond a single congregation. The story of Bishop Wooden's church is not just about departures, disagreements, or internal conflicts. It is a cautionary tale with lessons for leaders, congregants, and anyone invested in building a thriving community. The ripple effects of these events reach far beyond one pulpit, offering insight into leadership, communication, and the delicate balance between authority and empathy. One of the clearest lessons is the importance of transparency. Several former members and insiders highlighted how decisions were often made behind closed doors, leaving volunteers and congregants feeling excluded and powerless. While strong leadership is essential, a lack of open communication can erode trust over time. This is a reminder that people don't just follow authority, they follow leaders they understand and believe in. When transparency disappears, loyalty can evaporate almost overnight. Another lesson is the need for adaptability. Bishop Wooden's bold approach initially drew members in, but as the congregation evolved, some felt his style remained rigid and unyielding. The departures suggest that even the most charismatic leaders must adapt to the needs of their community without compromising core values. Flexibility, empathy, and active listening are not signs of weakness. They are essential for maintaining connection and long-term engagement. The human element is perhaps the most critical takeaway. Leadership and vision alone are not enough to sustain a community. Churches, like any organization, are built on relationships, trust, and emotional bonds. When these connections are neglected, even the most inspired ministry can fracture. The stories of families, youth, and volunteers who left Bishop Wooden's church highlight the profound consequences of disconnecting from the people who form the backbone of a community. Social media and public perception also play a role in modern ministry dynamics. Departures that once would have been private are now highly visible, and narratives spread quickly online. Leaders must be aware that their actions and inactions can resonate far beyond the sanctuary, influencing not only current members, but also the broader public perception of their ministry. Transparency, accountability, and responsiveness have never been more crucial. Finally, there is a lesson about personal integrity and courage. Many members who left did so not because they abandoned faith, but because they refused to compromise their values or emotional well-being. Their stories remind us that faith is deeply personal, and sometimes walking away from an institution is an act of spiritual strength rather than weakness. Leaders and communities alike must recognize that honoring individual conscience is as important as upholding doctrine or organizational goals. In the end, the ripple effects of Bishop Wooden's story serve as both warning and guidance. For leaders, it is a reminder to balance authority with empathy, conviction with flexibility, and vision with human connection. For members, it is a call to honor their instincts, values, and emotional health even when it means making difficult decisions. And for everyone watching, it is a reminder that communities, whether religious, professional, or social, thrive when people feel heard, seen, and valued. As we move toward the conclusion, the story leaves us with a final, sobering thought. Departures, while painful, are rarely meaningless. They reveal the pressures, conflicts, and imperfections inherent in any community, and they offer a chance for reflection, growth, and ultimately transformation. The story of Bishop Wooden and the members who left his church is far more than a tale of departures. It is a window into the complex realities of leadership, faith, and human connection. We've explored how a church that once thrived under the passionate guidance of a bold pastor eventually faced waves of members walking away. We've seen the first subtle signs of discontent, the insider revelations that exposed hidden conflicts, and the emotional toll on families, volunteers, and congregants who had invested their hearts for years. What stands out most is the duality of this story. On one hand, your own communities and relationships. Are voices being heard? Are people feeling valued? And if not, what steps can you take to bridge the gap before it's too late? Sometimes the most difficult decisions, like leaving a place you love, are the ones that ultimately lead to growth, clarity, and renewed purpose. If you found this story insightful, shocking, or thought-provoking, make sure to like this video, share it with friends who may relate, and comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever faced a situation where leaving was the hardest yet most necessary choice? We'd love to hear your experiences, and don't forget to subscribe for more revealing stories about faith, leadership, and the controversies that shape communities. Because at the end of the day, these stories aren't just about a church. They're about people, their choices, and the truths we sometimes can't ignore.